While studying various myths, religions, and cultures of the past and of his present, Carl Jung noticed how there seemed to be several patterns, themes, and symbols in common between them. Many of these themes and symbols ended up appearing in dreams of fantasies of patients suffering from schizophrenia, but also of normal people, such as the mandala, which appears in Buddhist tapestries in the art of schizophrenic people and in Catholic drawings from the West as well. For Jung, the human psyche is the home of psychic events. You can call it the mind, the brain, or cognition as well. But the psyche would be the place that contains elements that are both unique to ourselves and the elements that are shared by all people. As a child comes into the world with a brain predetermined by heredity, as we have seen in personality traits or the Big Five, he or she responds to external sensory stimuli and constructs his or her subjectivity. But for Jung, he has a different explanation for these hereditary predispositions, not ignoring genetics, of course, but rather with specific predispositions that condition selectivity and organize our individual perception. To this end, Jung created the idea of a collective unconscious, the home of symbols from our ancestors which were passed down from generation to generation as they interacted with each other and with their environment. And these interactions ended up being passed on to us as well through forms of behaviors, of emotional responses, or thoughts, or even intuitions that we seem to have. While the personal unconscious, which was discovered by Freud, is the home of our instincts, our neuroses, or memories of the past, and our repressed feelings, so it is more individual, the collective unconscious will be the home of the archetypes, the commons and the common representations of symbols. Thus, there is a hereditary predisposition to the collective unconscious, just as we have a predisposition to speak or to produce a language. All of this is relative to the way our brain was created over the many and many years of evolution. But as much as the collective unconscious may seem, it is not a metaphysical place that no one can see and that does not exist within our bodies, but rather a place that was and is formed by the interactions of ourselves, our individual selves, and our ancestors with the environment, the external world. Thus, both socially and genetically constructed, it appears when we react to this environment with our own subjectivity. And with this, the archetypes appears, which for Jung, in the same way that we are born with physical organs such as a heart, lung, and skin, and so on, we are also born with psychic organs, so to speak. These psychic organs or archetypes can be several, and again, they arise in this interaction between what we have within ourselves and outside ourselves. So when we watch a movie, for example, we take from the movie archetypes, like the hero archetype, which is always this character who saves people, who has qualities that we all want to have and that we all admire. There is the old king archetype, which are the older and wiser characters like Gandalf from The Lord of the Rings or Dumbledore from Harry Potter. There is the archetype of the fool, who is a deceitful person who cannot be trusted and who tends to be a mystery at times and whose behaviors no one can predict, like Bugs Bunny from the Looney Tunes, or Joker from the Batman, or even Captain Jack Sparrow from the Pirates of the Caribbean. And with this, it is not only people or representations of a person that can be archetypes. Archetypes can also be places, events, or even attitudes that a person has. For example, there could be a mountain archetype, which represents a very arduous journey and ascent that a person needs to make in their own life. Some books, such as Thus Spoke Zarathustra by Friedrich Nietzsche, have this archetype, And even video games such as God of War, which tells the story of Kratos and his son going to the place just to go on this great journey of self-knowledge and of creating a better relationship between a father and son. Back to Zarathustra of Nietzsche, there's this very old wise man, this philosopher who goes and takes a time to live in this mountain for many, many years, and then in this mountain he acquires all the knowledge of the world. And then when he said it is enough with this, he comes down of the mountain, he goes into a town and tells people what he has learned with this journey, so to speak. There's also the archetype of a sacrifice and rebirth. And the first one is when a hero decides to kill himself or to make a choice that tends to destroy him, while the second is about the return of this hero in some triumphant way, as if he were being born again, detached from his old self. Examples of this could be like any character that seems to die but then returns nevertheless. From sacrifices in fiction we have like Tony Stark, and from big rebirths in real life we have the examples of Jesus Christ, one of the biggest, if not the biggest, story in the Western civilization. So while personality traits were more objectified, Jung's archetypes are much more abstract and require much more interpretation to be understood. And then we get to the question, how can we interpret these archetypes? And Jung's answer is that they are everywhere. In books, in movies, and even video games. Well, he didn't say there are in video games, but biblical stories and people's actions, and even in our dreams and also our desires. And to understand the archetypes, we can't just say what we think. We need to compare these archetypes and to look for others that are similar. So Jung always did research and comparisons related to past religions, to cultures, to arts, and especially in dreams of his patients. In his book Archetypes and the Collective Unconscious, Jung says that he interpreted around 25,000 dreams in his life, which is, well, a lot. And in Jung's own words, since unconscious tendencies, not without a reason, appear in dreams, whether in the form of retrospective images or in the form of prospective anticipations, they have been understood throughout the millennia that precede as more as anticipations of the future than as historical regressions. Everything that will be happens on the basis of what was and what still is, consciously or unconsciously, a trace of memory. And so far as no human being is born as a completely new invention, but always repeats the last stage of development, reached, he unconsciously contains as an priori given the entire psychic structure developed little by little in an ascending or descending direction through his ancestry. This fact gives the unconscious its characteristic historical aspect, while at the same time constituting the conditio sine qua non of a certain configuration of the future. For this reason, it is often difficult to decide whether the autonomous manifestation of the unconscious should be interpreted as an effect and therefore historical, or as a purpose, and therefore theological and anticipatory. Consciousness generally thinks without worrying about ancestral preconditions and without calculating the influence of the priori factor on configuration of destiny. While we think in periods of years, the unconscious thinks and lives in periods of millennia. Thus, if something happens that we consider an unprecedented innovation, it is generally a very old story that we always forget what happened yesterday, just like children. We still live in a wonderful new world, in which humans, being considered themselves astonishing new and modern, the state is unequivocal proof of the youth of human consciousness, which ignores its historical antecedents. If we were to sum it all up in one sentence, it will be this: that people don't have ideas, but ideas have people. This is the basis for understanding archetypes and the collective unconscious. Knowing that beyond your personal experience, there is also this transcendental experience. In a way, it's the same thing as personality traits, but changing the focus of the vision. While in the traits, we first look at the biology to understand human subjectivity. Here we will see how human subjectivity is expressed. So it is much more to see how the similarities that we share with all other people can be expressed subjectively by our own selves. What makes this individuality through this objectivity of biology and nature? And mainly, how can we incorporate these aspects into ourselves as well, so that we can and then be more truthful and more authentic, living in less agony, living with fewer problems, with fewer neuroses, so to speak. Since not understanding the archetypes for Jung and not living in accordance with them is what would make a person to create psychopathologies. It is, in a way, understanding how our ancestors dealt with the problems that are common to us nowadays, but also understanding from our own strengths and capabilities what to do with our own lives. For example, imagine that you are beautiful and your beauty is in some way universal. Through archetypes and by exploring the historical past, and even through films and models from our current times, you can learn how to other people or how other people use this beauty that they have, and then know how best use your own beauty as well. Or perhaps you're a highly intelligent person. Knowing how other people express or have expressed these in the past can be a great way to help you to express your own intelligence, and in a way that doesn't go against who you truly are. So it is more about being truthful to these biological and hereditary things and also social expectations, but at the same time knowing how to express them better in your own subjectivity. To better understand this, in the next video we will look at two very important archetypes: the persona, which is the social mask that we have and that we use to relate to other people, and the shadow, which are those parts that are hidden behind this persona.